How you doing? Hope you had a good day today. Hope you've been good. Sure you have. So, weather's been a bit today, but I expect you've been very, very busy working today, homeschooling. So, as promised, I'm going to read you the story of It's the Strange Tale of the Unicorn. So, we like unicorns, don't we, Ruby? So, if you're sitting nice and comfortably, then Nana will begin. Long ago there was a village called Roundy, because all the houses were built round, and a big ring of green grass. The houses were round too, and it really was the funniest little place you ever saw. All the houses had people living in them except one tiny round cottage, which had only one living room and one bedroom in it. Nobody wanted to live there because the chimney smoked dreadfully and the walls were damp. There were hundreds and hundreds of black beetles living in the kitchen. So the little round house stood empty for many a year. Then one day a strange creature came to Roundy. It was a unicorn. You must have seen pictures of them. Horse-like creature with one long horn sticking right out of the centre of its forehead. The people flocked to see the strange animal, and the children pointed their fingers at it and asked what it was. On its back it carried 3 great bundles, and it looked all around the little village as it passed through and suddenly saw the empty cottage. It walked up to the little broken gate and opened it. It peered in at the windows and then pushed the door open and went inside. "This will do for me," said the unicorn in a deep voice. 2 rooms are just enough." So the unicorn settled down to live in the cottage all by himself. He undid his bundles with his hooves and spread them out. There was a table, a bed, 2 chairs, pots and pans and a few dishes. Not very much to furnish a house with, but his cottage was so small that even those few things seemed to fill it. "It's dirty," said the unicorn, looking round. "I must get someone to clean it. The walls are damp too. I must get some wood to light a big fire." He went to the next cottage and knocked on the door. Mrs. Dimple had quite a fright when she opened it and saw a unicorn standing there. "Can you tell me where I can get someone to come in and clean for me?" asked the unicorn politely. "Dear me, you're not really going to live next door, are you?" said Mrs. Dimple in surprise. "Fancy a unicorn living in a cottage." "Well, why not?" said the unicorn. "I must live somewhere. Come, tell me who will clean my house for me." "Do you see that cottage painted white over there?" asked Mrs. Dimple, pointing across the green grass. "Well, Dame Hobble lives there with her daughter and stepdaughter. One of them will be sure to clean up for you." "Thank you," said the unicorn, and went to call at the white painted cottage. Dame Hobble opened the door and gasped at him in surprise. But when she heard that he had plenty of money and would pay well for his cleaning, she stopped staring at him and called Malaya, her daughter. "Malaya will clean for you," she said. "Won't you, Malaya?" Malaya looked sulkily. She hated cleaning, but when her mother whispered to her that she would be very well paid for her work, she said yes. She would go and clean the cottage for the unicorn. "Come tomorrow," said the unicorn, and he went back to his cottage. "Now mind you clean well for him," Malaya's mother told her pouting daughter. "He's rich." "I don't like working for a silly old unicorn," sulked Malaya. "Why can't Susan go?" "Well, do you want Susan to get money for it then?" asked her mother. "Let us go together, and I'll make her do most of the work," said Malaya artfully. "We can give her a little of the money, mother, but I'll see that she does nearly all of the work." "Very well," said her mother, who hated Susan, her pretty stepdaughter, and was quite willing that she should go and do most of the work for a tiny part of the money. That's not very nice, is it? So the next day the 2 girls went across the green to the unicorn's cottage. Susan had on a strong overall and carried a bucket, soap, cloths, brushes with her, and Malaya hadn't even troubled to put on an apron, and all she carried was a duster. The unicorn opened the door. Malaya giggled at the sight of him, but Susan looked into his deep brown eyes and wondered why they seemed so unhappy. The 2 girls set to work, well, at least Susan began to scrub the floors and wash the walls, while Malaya wondered about prying in the cupboards and drawers. The unicorn caught her peeping and spoke to her sharply, and she answered him rudely. He looked at her so strangely that she took up her duster and began to rub the windows with it. Susan worked hard all that week. She made the floor shine and the windows glitter, the fireplace bright, and all the furniture gleamed like mirrors. Malia only gave her twopence a day out of the money that the unicorn handed to her, but she did not dare to complain. Week after week, Malia and Susan went to cook and clean for the unicorn. Susan made pretty curtains to hang in the windows. She caught a hedgehog and left it in the kitchen at nights to catch and eat all the hundreds of black beetles. What a good idea. She chopped up wood for his fire and even dug up his garden for him, for he could not do very much with hooves instead of hands. Each week the unicorn paid out wages to Malia, and because she was the elder of the two, and each week Malia gave Susan only a few pence for all her work. The unicorn watched and wondered, but said nothing at all. Susan was always polite and kind to him, but Malia was rough and rude. She thought it was strange for a unicorn to live in a house. Why didn't he live in a field and eat grass? Then one week, when Malia had burnt the cakes she had tried to make, upset a bowl of water on the floor and forgotten to mop it up, and stole half of a fruit pie from the larder, the unicorn wouldn't give her any wages. "No," he said. "You're a bad girl, Malia. You're always lazy, and you do very little, and the little you do is always bad. Why should I give you the money? I'm sure you don't give Susan her share. Here, Susan, take the money. You are not to give any of it to Malia. It is all for you, and in the future I don't want Malia to come and work for me, but only you." Well, Malia was so angry she ran straight home to her mother and told her. When Susan got home, they took the money from her and scolded her, and then they told her that she must go and work for the unicorn as he said, but every week they would take away her money. "That will teach you to get into the silly unicorn's good books and push Malia out of them," said her stepmother angrily. Poor Susan, she was very miserable. She went to work for the unicorn as usual, but every week all her money was taken away, and she was never allowed a penny for herself. Her clothes fell into rags, and at last even the unicorn noticed how shabby and sad she looked. "Why don't you buy yourself a new dress?" he asked. "You get enough money, Susan. What do you do with it all?" Susan didn't like to tell tales of her stepmother and stepsister, and she went red and said nothing at all. "Poor little Susan," said the unicorn suddenly. "Do they let you keep any of your money?" Susan felt the tears coming into her eyes, and she wiped them away. The unicorn gave a heavy sigh, and she looked at him in surprise. His eyes were so sad that she couldn't bear to see them. She ran to him and flung her arms around his neck. "Don't look like that," she cried. "I love you, dear kind unicorn. We are both unhappy, so let us comfort one another." She kissed the unicorn's velvety nose and then sprang away in surprise. What was this? What was happening? Marvel of marvels! The unicorn no longer stood there, but a young prince with thick black locks and shining eyes. "Susan, you kissed me and broke the spell. You loved me and destroyed the enchantment that made me a unicorn. I was changed into that strange shape by a wizard whom I accidentally knocked down when I was out riding. I was sad and unhappy, for none of my people knew me then, and I was forced to wander out into the world by myself, miserable and lonely." "A prince!" Susan said. "How wonderful! But, sir, forgive me for kissing you. I thought you were just a unicorn." "I shan't forgive you," cried the prince, taking her into his arms and hugging her in delight. "I'll only forgive you on one condition. Come back with me to my palace and marry me." The prince sent a messenger to bring his carriage from his father's palace, and very soon there came not one carriage but many, all rolling into the little village of Roundy. The king and queen were in one, 2 princes and a princess in another, and a whole crowd of nobles followed. They were all overjoyed to hear from the prince again, for they had thought he was lost forever. "This is Susan, who is going to marry me," said the prince, and the king and queen kissed her lovingly. All the people of Roundy village came out to see what was happening, and how Malia and her mother stared to see Susan climbing up into the king's own carriage with a handsome prince. "Goodbye, stepmother," called Susan. "The unicorn was really a prince, and I'm going to marry him." How angry Malia was! She at once set out to find another unicorn to keep house for him. When he asked her to marry him, she said yes, but dear me, it wasn't a prince at all. It was just an old bad-tempered unicorn who did nothing but order her about from dawn till dusk. And a very good thing too. Susan married her prince, and, so the history books of that country say, they lived happily ever afterwards. How amazing. I wouldn't recommend going kissing horses and things though, but it's only a fairy tale. But that was a nice ending, wasn't it? So it just goes to show if you're kind, you get the good luck, don't you? So that was the strange tale of the unicorn, and it was strange. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you sleep really well. And Torby, no getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning. So night-night, Torben, I love you. Night-night, Atty, I love you. Night-night, Ruby, I love you. And night-night, Max, I love you. Be good and be kind. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.